Hello and welcome to Beyond Games, the YouTube channel all about what's next for gaming. I'm John Jordan. So some interesting kind of news today around what's going on in Call of Duty. So we've known Call of Duty, massive gaming franchise for well over a decade, and we're starting to see Call of Duty become that dreaded word, metaverse. So how can we sort of get an idea about this? Well, kind of, the idea of a metaverse is obviously that you are bigger than a game. You're a bigger experience, and maybe just the things you do in the game, obviously social aspects, lots of other things. But I think part of this is sort of bringing new IPs in, and we've seen this very much with things like Fortnite. I mean, basically Fortnite very quickly has been this sort of a melting pot where other IP, notably stuff like Marvel, has sort of come in and enriched the universe. And maybe that's easier for Fortnite because Fortnite is sort of a more malleable sort of kind of creative aesthetic. It's sort of quite cutesy in a way, whereas Call of Duty clearly has come from a more kind of realistic kind of a military kind of art style. But it is interesting that we're kind of seeing some of this stuff happening, and to some degree this may seem like a fairly small detail. So they're doing this new kind of themed event around 1980s action heroes Rambo and John McClane. So this is kind of interesting. I guess things like Rambo and Die Hard obviously were pretty big in the 80s, but kind of have surpassed that and become sort of memes in themselves. I guess probably more Die Hard than Rambo. There's been a lot of bad Rambo films. There's been some bad Die Hard ones as well, but probably not quite as bad as Rambo films. But what's interesting now is as we go through this, I'm not going to go through the entire press release from Activision, but just see the depth of how the kind of content refresh that happens in these massive game worlds, and how this sort of this IP thing can kind of flood through all of it in quite surprising ways. The other thing to notice is that this is actually coming across kind of three different kind of Call of Duty you can see them as games. I mean, they're sort of interlinked, but there's Black Ops Cold War, Warzone, and Call of Duty Mobile. So the mobile side is sort of separate, and then you have these other kind of PC console ones, which are a bit more kind of not really integrated, but a bit more kind of the same platforms, obviously. But these sort of IP drops, I mean, going through all of them, I think how complex this sort of stuff is to coordinate. Anyway, so 20th of May, this stuff begins. Doesn't really matter from that point of view. One thing I think that is interesting is obviously we have Call of Duty and Rambo. So here's the sort of Die Hard stuff here. The famous sort of kind of office that in Die Hard 1 at least. But we have no John McClane imagery here. So whereas we do have Sylvester Stallone in Rambo here. So obviously some image right issues around whether you can actually get the license for the film, but can you get the image right for the stars, which are obviously a bit different. Bruce Willis obviously I know, asking for too much money or something, I don't know. So we can see here, the first thing is obviously for these sort of games they want to bring in this event and they want to sell things. So we have kind of this operator bundles. So these are kind of the weapons, the famous weapons from the games. Although I think this one's very famous. I'm not sure that's in Rambo, was it? I can't remember. I remember the big machine gun. Die Hard, obviously we have kind of some of the stuff from Die Hard. So there's a way of sort of selling stuff, but then we sort of go into sort of more subtle sort of changes. So in terms of we have these kind of film locations, the Nakamoto Plaza, the famous kind of office block here. That's been sort of dropped into kind of Call of Duty. The tallest single structure that's been seen in Warzone, and has these kind of floors inside. You can do kind of fighting around. Again, there's this sort of survival camp thing as well, sort of taken from Rambo. And then there's some sort of some more random stuff, some CIA outpost, which doesn't really, I can't remember that from the film, but maybe that's just me. But then we have this stuff not just being kind of in-game items and in-game locations. Now we're having modes. So now we have this power grab mode. So in Hollywood movies you get all this kind of crazy stuff going on. So now let's do a sort of a battle royale dialed up to Hollywood extremes. So now we have this kind of stuff about how the starting circle is smaller and collapses quicker, and sort of different modes around that. Obviously, I guess this is probably what's best known for Rambo is the kind of bow and arrow. So we have the sort of bow and arrow as well, sort of coming in here. It's an explosive bow and arrow. It's going to blow things up. Ballistic knife. Can't remember that from the film. So there's kind of other stuff just sort of also coming in, not related to the kind of IP drops. Specifically because these games are just massive and they always need new things. So now we sort of get into just sort of stuff that is happening in the update. But I think it's just worth going through. That you have these two, so you've got new maps, new game modes and medals. So they've got this sort of Die Hard point. So it's sort of Die Hard, but I'm not quite sure that this is particularly related to in terms of kind of art aesthetic or anything like that. It's just sort of like provides marketing kind of hooks, I suppose. Here we have another Rambo big machine gun. That you wouldn't do anything like that in real life, clearly, but there we go. So we have kind of weapons. So we can see this is sort of heavier on Rambo because I guess they've got the image rights to Rambo. And we're having some kind of medals. So it's sort of in-game sort of rewards inspired by this. Obviously, we we have zombies. So we have you can kind of start to see now that and this has been happening for a while. Clearly, this is not new. The fact that these things are now so complex. Everyone's always liked zombies in Call of Duty, and now we have actually another film in here. So we have the Cranked the Cranked film. So now we have this idea that it's if you're you have to kind of keep your metric up because the timer comes down. So I guess it sort of plays into each plays into kind of the battle royale sort of kind of ethos as well. So and it goes on and on and on, and on about different things, different guns. What else we got up here? This is just going to go on for challenges to unlock weapons. Yeah, I'm not going to get knocked down anymore. So there we go. It's sort of interesting, and you do kind of see that just this is sort of what the fans want. They love Call of Duty. They've spent hundreds, thousands of dollars probably on it over the years. Spent probably thousands of hours in there as well. But it's still it almost makes Call of Duty more realistic to have film heroes like Sylvester Stallone in there or Rambo in there than what was the kind of previously this quite kind of generic kind of contemporary military simulation. And I guess that kind of you can just see. I'm not saying Call of Duty is a metaverse, by the way, but you can kind of see how these things are evolving. And just even without these kind of tie-ins, just the scope of operating these games now is absolutely staggering. There are hundreds of people working on this stuff all the time, and this would have taken, I don't know, probably a year to put together, I suppose, from getting the initial kind of licenses in place, and then working out all the things you can do and how that fits into their kind of existing roadmap of kind of the updates that they want to do as well. But it is kind of yeah, kind of fascinating. How this stuff and this Dollar Shave Club, games are sort of games and IP and advertising is sort of everywhere. So there we go. That's the kind of stuff we like to covering in Beyond Games. We think games are going through this incredibly sort of explosive phase, even though games have been around for whatever 30, 35 years, 40 years. Games are still kind of finding new places to move to and affect society, and I think that's pretty interesting. So hopefully you do too. Please subscribe to the channel. But thanks for watching, and see you again soon.